Hello friends! On 4th of November 1914, Britain's endurance ship crossed a few stormy seas and advanced to the world's most dangerous and mysterious continent, Antarctica. There were 28 crew members in this ship, and the command was controlled by an explorer, Sir Ernest Shackleton, who wanted to do something that no one in history has ever done: to cross the entire continent of Antarctica on foot. You heard it right, friends. In a time when there are no smartphones, no GPS, no modern technology, this snowy continent, in the cold of -50 degrees Celsius, in the midst of snowy storms, from top to bottom, they want to cross it all on foot. Their plan was to reach the coast of Antarctica through the Weddell Sea. As you can see on the map, they would land exactly here and then trek on foot from there. They would go to the South Pole, cross it, and walk to the Ross Sea. A total of about 2,900 kilometers of trek. And if everything went according to plan, it would take about 120 days. But how badly did this plan fail? And what did they have to endure in the future? Neither could they imagine it at that time, nor can you imagine it, friends. On 5th of November 1914, this endurance ship reaches a whaling station on the South Georgia Island. On its way, it was the last settlement of the human world. If you look at the map, this group of islands is located near the tip of South America. Below them is the outskirts of Antarctica, which is known as the Antarctica Peninsula. Alongside it is the Weddell Sea, a sea that is surrounded by the land of Antarctica from all three sides. Because of this, the frozen ice cannot come out easily, and it becomes a dense, permanent layer of ice. The weather was very bad that day, and the conditions in Weddell Sea were also very bad. The people there told Shackleton to stop the mission, to delay it, otherwise it would be very risky to go there in these conditions. But Shackleton remained stubborn. He said it didn't matter. He kept moving forward. On December 5th, 1914, the endurance ship kept moving forward. But soon, the same thing happened, which was scary. The ice in Weddell Sea turned out to be several times heavier and denser than expected. But Shackleton continued to move forward. January 18th, 1915. After a while, the ship was completely stuck in the ice. A few days later, some crew members saw a 15 feet deep hole in the ice 50 yards away from the ship. This small hole was their last hope of getting out of the hole. So for 3 hours, the ship was driven at full speed and tried to get out of the ice. But the ship didn't move even an inch. The crew members tried to cut the ice from the Ari, Kulhadi, and Cheney, but they failed. Gradually, the ice that the ship was stuck in started to flow further away from the ground. The point where the crew had to land on Antarctica was called Vassal Bay, but the ship stuck in the ice was slowly moving further away from it, miles away. The problem was that there was still some water between the ice and Vassal Bay. The crew could not get off the ship and walk to the other side. On the other hand, the ship was stuck in the ice and could not move. In the attempt to take the ship out, weeks and months passed by. The winter season was approaching in Antarctica, and here winter meant 24 hours of darkness. For weeks and months, the sun wouldn't shine even for a minute. Shackleton ordered everyone to cut the winter in the ship itself. But winter meant the rise of the cold. The ice was cold, and there was a storm in the ice. Gradually, the ice pressure on the ship increased. A photographer, Frank Hurley, was also present on the ship. He had a camera. He took some photos that you can see on the screen. You can clearly see how the nearby ice was pressing the ship. On 30th of September 1915, the ship's edges began to see clear cracks. But the crew still had hope. On 24th of October 1915, around 6:45 p.m., due to sudden high pressure, the ice breaks and a piece of it breaks on the ship. A heavy rock of ice breaks the stern of Endurance, causing water to enter the ship. All crew members get to work immediately. They try to get the water out of the pump. They continuously tried to get the water out for 3 days. But the more the water was being emptied, the faster it was coming in. The temperature was -8.5 degrees Celsius. But still, the crew was neither afraid nor scared. Some people came out and started cutting the ice that was putting pressure on the ship. But this didn't work either. The water in the ship was still being filled. It was being filled at high speed, and the pressure of the ice on the ship wasn't decreasing. Finally, Shackleton accepted defeat and ordered the crew to empty the ship, to get down. At this time, a crew member, Tom McLeod, sees the situation and says, "I don't think we'll ever be able to return home." It had been more than 9 months since the ship was trapped. On 27th October 1915, a loud explosion is heard. When Shackleton turned around, he saw something very shocking. The last part of the ship suddenly rose 20 feet. The rudder and stern post were lifted. The ship's wood was about to break, and the next part of the ship was filled with water. Thankfully, all the crew members had left the ship by this time. After a while, the water turned into ice. Due to this, the front part of the ship began to sink slowly. Along with the sinking of the ship, Shackleton's dream of crossing Antarctica was also shattered. But the question was even more serious. Could he return alive? The crew had no radio, no telephone, no means to contact the outside world. They were trapped in a piece of ice in the Sea of Antarctica, a piece of ice that was floating in the water. On this piece of ice, there was a huge rock on which the crew set up their camp. The first thing to be seen was the account. What was left of it? How much food and water was there? The answer to this was that they had 3 small boats, 1 sledge through which they could go into the ice, some important personal items of the people, and a ration for about a month. For just a month, food. There were few places to sleep at night. So many people had to sleep on the ice. Most of the people slept together so that they wouldn't freeze in the cold. It was almost impossible to find another ship passing by, because they were in the Antarctic Ocean. No other ship comes here. Seeing the humans, he was over a year old. The outside world didn't even know if he was alive or not. Neither could they send any message, nor did they expect any help. Shackleton had only one thing: his own skills and his own experience, trust. But how long can this trust keep them alive? When there's a shortage of food, what will be done here? Camping on the ice wasn't a good solution either, because the ice could break at any time. They needed land. Shackleton made his calculations and guessed that the closest land they had was Paulet Island, about 550 km away from the icy sea, an island on the tip of Antarctica. Ironically, in 1903, after a Swedish ship got stuck, rescue gear was left on this island, so that in the future, if anyone got stuck in Antarctica, they could use this island for rescue. And this was bought by Shackleton himself. 12 years later, Shackleton himself was dependent on it. He and his crew decided to move towards Paulet Island. All the stuff would be dragged on sledges in the snow. And that's why Shackleton ordered that everyone could only take up to $2 worth of stuff. Many people had taken some of their personal items with them as they got off the ship. But Shackleton said that nothing is more valuable than their lives. Shackleton left some of his gold coins and his Bible in the snow. The photographer Frank Hurley had about 400 photos. There were negatives of the photos, but due to the 2-pound limit, he could only bring in 150 negatives. These 150 photos would later become evidence of this historic event. A few weeks later, due to lack of food, the crew had to kill the dogs and puppies. There was no other option. After a few days of preparation, all the luggage was loaded onto boats and sledges. Each boat weighed about 1 ton. And it wasn't easy to pull them. Even fate wasn't supporting them, because by this time the summer season had returned in Antarctica, and the temperatures were rising. As a result, the surface above the ice softened, and it became more difficult to pull the luggage. After 3 hours of hard work, when the crew turned back and looked, they saw that they could only walk a distance of 1 mile. The road ahead was getting worse. Shackleton decided to camp here, until the piece of ice would flow and come closer to the ground. The piece of ice on which the camp was placed was named Ocean Camp. Shackleton gave every person in his crew some work so that they wouldn't feel bored and depressed. On 21st November 1915, there was more pressure on the last part of the Endurance ship. Because of this, it suddenly started to float in the water. It stayed in the air for a while, and then slowly the entire ship sank under the ice. All the crew members were only a few kilometers away. They saw the whole incident in front of their eyes. Although they had already emptied the ship, but the ship sinking in front of them in this way gave them a deep emotional shock, as if their last link to the world had broken. Now it was just a rock of ice, and they built this ocean camp on it. Things went well for the next few days, but after a few weeks the ice started to flow in the direction of the east. It started to flow further away from the ground. So on 23rd December 1915, Shackleton decided to leave the ocean camp. And once again he decided to walk on foot. But just a few kilometers ahead, suddenly thin ice and water came in front of them. Now these people could neither move forward nor back. Once again, they set camp on this new rock of ice. To avoid the lack of food, Shackleton set up some very strict controls. The crew was given 1 biscuit a day, some diluted milk, some cocoa, and a small amount of high-fat meat paste, which they had in their cans. Apart from this, if the crew members saw the seals and penguins there, they started hunting them for food. In reality, there was still a shortage of food, but Shackleton often lied to his crew members about the food quantities so that they could increase their motivation. Don't worry, lads, there's enough food to keep us alive. They knew that if they had to get out of this situation alive, it would take a very long time. In such a situation, if something is needed the most, it is mental strength. It's the same in our lives, friends. To overcome most of the challenges, it is very important to be mentally strong. For many months, the camp on this new cliff kept moving. Thankfully, the snow moved in the right direction. As the days went by, the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. As the new year began on 23rd of March 1916, in the morning, Shackleton saw something in the distance. As the snow started to fall, the mountains began to be visible, and Shackleton recognized that this was Joinville Island. But there was no good news of Joinville Island, because this island was located on the very top of the peninsula. This meant that they had flowed so far ahead with the ice that Paulette Island had been left behind. Joinville Island was only 57 miles away from Paulette Island, but at a 90-degree angle in the west, and there was a lot of ice in the middle. It was impossible to cross this ice. So Shackleton looks at his map. In the north, they can see that if they keep flowing in this direction, only 2 more islands are left on the way: Clarence Island and Elephant Island. After this, for thousands of kilometers, only the ocean remains empty. A sea where such high waves rise, where the chances of survival are almost zero. The sea between the southernmost tip of South America and the northernmost tip of Antarctica is known as the Drake's Passage. It's the most dangerous sea in the world. 12 meters high waves rise here. More than 20,000 sailors have lost their lives in the Drake's Passage. There are at least 800 ships in history that have sunk in the Drake's Passage. Even today, friends, even in 2025, if you try to cross it through a ship, you won't be able to see anything like this. The biggest cruise ships were shaken by Drake's Passage. So yes, Shackleton knew that if the crew members on this piece of ice reached Drake's Passage, they would be dead for sure. Meanwhile, the shortage of food was increasing. The rotten meat that had been separated for the dogs had to be given to humans to eat. For drinking water, everyone would put ice in a small can and stick it to the body so that the body's heat would melt the ice and they could get some clean water to drink. But in one can, only 1 to 2 spoons of water could be released at a time. An interesting fact here was that although there were 28 people in this crew, but officially there were only 27. In August 1914, when the ship departed from Britain, a 28th person named Black Burrow came in hiding. Shackleton had already refused to make him a part of his ship, but he still secretly sneaked into the ship. Later, when Shackleton found out, he told him directly that if there was a shortage of food, he would be the first crew member to be eaten. If you remember the story of Miracle of Flight 571, which I told you about in this video, people had to do something like this. A very shocking and painful thing. Many people would prefer to die instead. But thankfully, Shackleton's crew didn't have to do this. They were lucky to see a sea leopard one day. After hunting it, they found about 1,000 pounds of meat. Other than that, many crew members killed their dogs so that they could be eaten. After that, for the next few months, thankfully there was no shortage of food. On 7th April 1916, the crew finally saw Clarence Island floating on ice. It was about 83 kilometers north of the island. As soon as they saw the island, they had a new hope. But then, all of a sudden, the wind changed direction. The wind began to flow in the direction of the east. There was no other island in the east. There was no other land. Within a few hours, the hopes of Shackleton and his crew were shattered. The rock on which they had set up their camp was also getting smaller and smaller. Now it was only 50 meters long. It was becoming more and more dangerous for the crew to spend more time on this piece of ice. That's why Shackleton makes the decision to put all the crew members in 3 boats and move on to Clarence Island. It wasn't just water. There were many icebergs and rocks in between. After a while, they find another strong rock of ice. They set up a new camp. But as soon as they set up their camp, an earthquake struck the iceberg. Suddenly, one of their crew members fell into the water. The name of this boy was Fireman Ernie Holness. Everyone else tried to get him out of the water. But before they got a chance to save him, the iceberg broke into 2 parts. Shackleton was left alone on one side, and the rest of the crew was left in the dark. No one understood what to do. Their leader, their commander, who had been given commands for so long, suddenly disappeared in the dark. But that's when Shackleton's voice comes from the darkness. After that, some crew members take out the boat and bring Shackleton back. After returning to the first piece of ice, the first thing Shackleton asks about is Holness, who was shivering. After falling into the water, the risk of hypothermia had increased. There was no way to light a fire. If nothing was done, he would be killed shivering like this. Shackleton once again used his skills and experience and ordered him to keep walking until his body was so hot that all his clothes dried up. This poor boy kept walking all night. But because of this, his clothes dried up slowly. He didn't feel cold anymore. Meanwhile, the wind was changing its direction again and again. Sometimes the piece of ice would go this way, sometimes that way. 4 times they changed their target. First, they thought they would reach Clarence Island. Then they thought they would go to King George Island. Then they thought of Hope Bay. And in the end, they decided to go to Elephant Island. Elephant Island was the last island before Drake's Passage. It was 160 kilometers away in the northwest direction. Because their iceberg was flowing in the north direction, the temperature gradually increased. The temperature was now -8 degrees Celsius. The nearby ice was decreasing, but that also meant that the fresh water was decreasing. The water was running out. Because of the thirst, everyone's lips were swollen. Their throats were so dry that it was difficult to swallow food. Everyone was given raw meat of seal so that it would be easier to swallow food with the help of blood. In the meantime, slowly, their piece of ice started to flow towards Elephant Island. Now, Elephant Island was only 50 kilometers away. Shackleton ordered all boats to be put into the water, and the final journey would be done by boats. On 15th April 1916, the crew couldn't believe in their fate. The 3 boats reached the island safely, and after 497 days, they finally found land under the crew members' feet. Having been through hell, this desolate, uninhabited lump of rock seemed nothing short of heaven. They couldn't believe that their feet were actually on solid ground. Not on a piece of ice, everyone was very happy. But they were unaware that their troubles were not over yet. One of their crew members had stopped working at Blackborough. As soon as another crew member, Rickinson, reaches the island, he suffers a heart attack. But somehow, he survives. The biggest problem was that Elephant Island was completely deserted. No one lived here. There were no rescue supplies, nor was there a way to contact anyone. The location of this island was such that no one came to visit it. No ships passed by. The problem was still how to get back home. Looking at the map, Shackleton saw 3 options. The first was to go to Cape Horn, the southernmost tip of South America, which was about 800 kilometers away in the northwest. The second option was to go to the Falkland Islands, which was about 880 kilometers away in the east of South America. Or the third option was to go to the northeast to ask for help in the South Georgia Islands, which was about 1,300 kilometers away. The first 2 options were closer, but going there meant crossing the Drake Passage. Shackleton chose the third option. He believed that the sea and the air would support him more if he went to the South Georgia Island. The crew's condition had worsened so much that it was not possible to take everyone with him. Shackleton decided to take a small team of 5 people and go to the boat in the South Georgia. After reaching there, he would ask for help from a ship, and the team that had stopped on the island would set up camp on Elephant Island. On 24th April 1916, Shackleton, along with a small team of 5 people, set out for the South Georgia Island. If you look at their planned route on the map, you'll see that Drake's Passage was not being completely avoided. Drake would still have to pass through the passage to get here, but there was no other option. In this small boat, they entered the world's most dangerous sea route. To cross such a long distance, these people used to sail for 4 hours at a time and rest for 4 hours. But in this small boat, rest was only for the namesake. Their entire journey was soaked by the fast waves of the sea. They were exhausted and exhausted. In April, the winter season had begun in Antarctica. The sun would rise for just a few hours. The rest of the 20-odd hours would pass in the dark. The sunlight of a few hours was very important, because with the help of this, they could use the sextant instrument and find out the direction. Whether the direction in which the ship was sailing was the right direction or not. They kept sailing for hours and hours. The hours changed into the day. On the way, the boat was filled with water again and again. The water was taken out of the boat using a pump. Once or twice, there were such big waves that the boat was almost drowned. For some time, it seemed that the boat would not be able to survive. But by chance, they survived and kept moving forward. They had packed some food with them in the boat. But there was a big problem. There was not enough space in the deck for them to sit down and eat. That's why they had trouble swallowing the food. That's why they had to lie on the boat and eat. The situation on the boat was so difficult that even Shackleton's courage started to respond. It was very difficult for him to endure all this. When a small bird started crowding on the boat, he started cursing her in anger. In such frustration, he was also losing his courage. But slowly, day and night, they came close to their destination. The island of South Georgia was only 3 miles away. But before they could celebrate, suddenly a sea storm came. Their boat got stuck in the storm. The waves in the sea suddenly became uncontrollable. Sometimes the boat would jump from one side, and sometimes it would fall from the other side. All of them didn't have the strength to fight anymore. They put their boats aside and gave up. The storm kept throwing their boat from side to side. But after a few hours, when the wind slowed down and the clouds started to rise, he saw his South Georgia island. Only 1 mile away, seeing the island, he used all his strength. With all his strength, everyone started to climb. But the waves were still very strong. Shackleton was convinced that the end was near. The boat was not moving. But in reality, even if they were moving slowly, they were moving towards the island. Fighting the storm, wind, and water for 3 weeks, they finally set foot on the island of South Georgia on 10th May 1916. It was the same island from which they set out on their journey to Antarctica 522 days ago. A wave of joy runs through them. Shackleton and the crew members hug each other. But their fight didn't end here. Actually, the island of South Georgia is more than 100 kilometers long. Where they landed from the boat, that part of the island was on the other side of the human settlement. On the map, you can see exactly where it landed. And the human settlement, the whaling station on this island, is on the opposite side. To reach the whaling station from this point, they had two ways. First, they would sit back in the boat and travel 130 miles through the sea to reach the upper part of the island. Secondly, they walked up the island on foot. The path was only 29 miles long. But the problem was that the island of South Georgia was so full of dangerous mountains that no one in history had been able to cross the island on foot. It was considered impossible to cross this island on foot. So they obviously chose the boat as their option. But there was a big problem for them too. Their boat had crashed into the waves so badly that no one was able to save it. So there was no other option but to walk. The alternative was to attempt crossing the island. The island of South Georgia had never been crossed by anybody. The whalers regarded the country as inaccessible. Shackleton was not one of those who believed in defeat. Not at this point at all. If he endured so much in the last year, he will endure a little more. Now, to stay alive, he will have to do something that no other person in history has done. These 10,000 feet high snowy mountains will have to be crossed on foot in some way. Shackleton decided that he needed to rest for his body to recover. So he stayed in a cave with his crew, and for the next 9 days, he only ate food. Thankfully, there was no shortage of food on this island, because this island was full of albatrosses, seals, and penguins. After 9 days of rest, on 19th May 1916, around 3 in the morning, he left King Haakon Bay. He took the crew and 2 other members with him. Worsley and Crean. Worsley and Crean were coming with me. And after consultation, we decided to leave the sleeping bags behind and make the journey in a very light marching order. But the first challenge they faced was that no one knew where to go and how to go. The snow was so high that it reached their knees. The mountains were so high that they couldn't see beyond them. They would climb a mountain and then try to find a way. They would return when they couldn't find a way. This happened to them many times. They would climb all the mountains they saw. If they found a big hill, they would climb a high rock like a wall. Whenever they couldn't find a way, they would turn around and come down and climb another mountain. With the complete clearance of the mist, we saw, to our sharp disappointment, what we had taken for a frozen lake was an arm of the sea. Shackleton said grimly, "We shall have to go on to the next, boys." This happened 3 times. For the next few days, they climbed all the mountains from their spot. Even after climbing the last mountain, they didn't find anything different. There was a huge cliff below. It was very steep and very dangerous slope. The situation looked grim enough. Fog cut off our retreat. Darkness covered our advance. It was useless to continue in this fashion. But there was no option but to turn back and return. The 3 of them tied themselves to a rope and slowly started to climb the stairs. Literally, they slowly climbed the stairs. After a while, as they climbed down, they saw the Stromness whaling station. And they saw some other humans. After climbing the mountains continuously for 36 hours, on 20th of May 1916, Shackleton, Worsley, and Crean successfully crossed the Allardyce mountain range and reached Stromness whaling station. This was the first time in history that someone had crossed the South Georgia island on foot. You can guess what level of impossible work they did. After Shackleton, this work was done for the first time in 1955. And the expert climbers came with full preparation. They did it. Shackleton had neither a tent nor a sleeping bag. All he had was his courage, and determination. When Shackleton finally reached the whaling station with his 2 companions, it was difficult to identify whether he was a human or not. His beard had grown too big. His face had turned black. He could only see with his eyes. His clothes were torn. When the factory manager at the station recognized him and saw that he was Shackleton, the same man who was missing from his team in Antarctica 2 years ago, knew the story of Shackleton and his crew at the South Georgia station. Everyone knew him as a painful incident. The man who was killed with his ship. But they couldn't believe that the same man was alive in front of their eyes 2 years later. The factory manager immediately gives them food and some new clothes. A bed to sleep in at night. The 3 of them take a bath and shave. The next day, Worsley takes a boat to King Haakon and rescues his other 3 companions. The same 3 people who were still waiting for Shackleton on the other side of the island. But Shackleton was actually worried about his 22 crew members trapped on Elephant Island. More than a month after seeing them for the last time had passed. Were they still alive? Will you be able to keep yourself motivated to stay alive in such a situation? Especially when you don't even know if your captains have successfully crossed the Drake Passage or not. On the other hand, will anyone ever come to save you here or not? Tell us the truth in the comments below. For how long will you be able to survive like this? Shackleton tried his best to rescue the people on Elephant Island as soon as possible. But as soon as he took the ship there, once again, the rescue ship got stuck in the ice. He tried again, but it didn't work. The same happened for the 3rd time. He tried 3 times in 3 months to save the people on Elephant Island. But he had to turn his ship 3 times. As the time passed, Shackleton's worries increased. He specially requested the British government to give him an ice-breaking ship. They were given a ship called Discovery, but it would take weeks to get there. Shackleton was not in the mood to wait. He didn't know how long they would be able to hold on. Another ship was requested by the Chilean government. A ship named Yalcho was given to them. On 25th August 1916, they took the ship back to Elephant Island. It took them about 6 days, but this time they successfully reached Elephant Island on 30th of August. As soon as they reached the island, they were stunned to see what they saw. In fact, the 22 people trapped on Elephant Island, Shackleton knew that they needed leadership. Otherwise, they would be depressed and frustrated. So Shackleton made Frank Wild the leader. After Shackleton's death, these people turned 2 boats upside down on Frank Wild's orders and built a shelter. They built this house for 128 days. They would hunt penguins and seals to fill their stomachs. Between hunger and despair, Frank Wild would repeat the same thing every morning. Pack your bags, friends. The boss can come today. Boss means Shackleton, but the boss didn't come. The day changed into weeks and the weeks into months. But every morning, Frank would wake up and repeat the same thing. Pack your bags, friends. The boss can come today. Every morning, Frank would climb the mountain and see if any ship had arrived, and would return empty-handed every evening. After 4 months, people's courage started to respond, and their difficulties were also increasing. One of them, Black Burrow's leg, was badly infected. He got gangrene infection, he had to cut his leg. Every day that passed, he believed that Shackleton actually couldn't reach South Georgia, that his boat might have sunk on the way. It had been 4 months and 6 days since they left Shackleton. Even Frank Wild had decided to move on. At Frank's behest, they packed their luggage, but no one was waiting for them. This time, they took out their boat and tried to go somewhere else. They started preparing to leave for Deception Island. But before they left for Elephant Island, they saw a sight in the far sea. A large ship was coming towards them. This ship was the Yalcho. As soon as they got close to the ship, they saw their commander and boss, Shackleton. From the men on duty outside, we heard a sudden yell. "Wild!" he shouted. "Wild! There's a ship! Haven't we been a light of glare?" The boss had finally come to save them. Shackleton was stunned to see them. All 22 people were alive. None of them had lost their courage. After fighting the ice, the sea, and the mountains for 2 years, Shackleton and his crew returned home. When we landed, they welcomed us so heartily that they nearly pushed us into the sea again. It was truly a miracle. Shackleton had come with 27 people, and all 27 people were returning home. It was possible because of Shackleton's leadership and courage, the determination of the crew, and the unbreakable teamwork. After 106 years of this incident, in the year 2022, some investigators were looking for him in the sea. They found him 10,000 feet below the Weddell Sea. They saw Shackleton's ship, Endurance. The state of preservation is just absolutely brilliant. There are no wood-consuming marine parasites in the Weddell Sea. To be honest, it's amazing that it took us 106 years to find the wreckage of this ship. And even after 106 years, because it had sunk below Antarctica, its condition is still quite good. You can see the latest photos of this ship on the screen, which are only a few years old. And today, if you ever go to South Georgia Island, you will also find the grave of Shackleton there. He wanted to make his name in history, the first person to cross Antarctica on foot. Although he failed in his original plan, he did something that was even more miraculous, even more amazing. If you like this survival story, friends, then there's another amazing survival story of Flight 571 survivors. Another story that tells you that if you have determination, if you have courage and stubbornness, then you can make the impossible possible.